Es una realización independiente que no tiene que ver con la ficción. Y todo el resto del mundo de la literatura de alguna u otra manera tiene que ver con la ficción, incluso el teatro, vaya, todo tiene que ver con eso. Y en la poesía, digamos, al decir Pessoa que las cosas son el sentido oculto de las cosas, y en un solo verso incluir esa polisemia y esa capacidad de interpretarlo de mil maneras, no tiene, y es absolutamente real, porque yo te digo ese verso, estoy segura que sabes perfecto, y sabes perfecto dónde cabría de tu experiencia o de lo que has vivido, ¿no? Tuyo, mío, en fin. Y la ficción es otra cosa, hay un mundo como más deliberadamente inventado, y la poesía no es eso. A eso me refiero sobre todo. No sé si te estoy contestando. ¿Sí?
Como que se aparta de la realidad, o mejor dicho, es
no,
más realidad.
Es la realidad, pero a todo lo que da, hipercargada, digamos, es como que tuvieras toda la carga posible de la luz en ella, porque no se atenta, como lo dijo, no se cansó de decirlo Octavio Paz, no se atenta contra la pluralidad de la palabra. En una palabra, en un verso, en una estrofa, en el poema entero, en el libro completo, en lo que tú digas. Es de mil maneras interpretables, ¿no? Y todo tiene que ver con el edificio lingüístico que lo está creando, según lo consigo yo, ¿no?
Muchas gracias. Excuse me, Mr. Fowler.
Hello.
Hello. What do you think about the Mexican poetry?
I'm not going to say it's bad, am I? Well, I came here last year. I'd never been to Mexico before. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm quite loud, so I assume I don't need a mic, but I definitely do. I came to Mexico last year for like 2 weeks to do a project with the Enemigos thing, and it was an extraordinary 2 weeks, one of the most intense and beautiful of my life, spending 2 weeks in Mexico City around Day of the Dead and actually spending time with the poets. Without being long-winded, my opinion of poetry is perhaps a little bit strange, because I don't really believe that the beauty and power of poetry can extend beyond the most personal of relationships, and therefore, while it's vitally important to me, in the world or the objectivity of reading, I don't really care about poetry. I don't think it's very important. I'm not really worried about it, because I think that if I read the same poem in a different mood, I have a different feeling, and it never stays stable. So I try not to think about it. So the way to answer your question is to say I found Mexican poets to be eminently warm, hospitable, beautiful human beings, and that's really all I care about in any people, poets or otherwise. Their poetry that I read in translation seems good, but what do I know?
Hola, buenas tardes. Primero que nada, felicidades por el panel, por los ponentes. Yo quisiera preguntar, es abierta la pregunta, estoy pensando en las tesis filosóficas de Teodoro Adorno, que hace sobre la música, apuntes sobre la música, en la que tiene que recurrir a fuerza al lenguaje paradójico, ya que dice que un texto musical nunca puede lograr su objetivación total. Yo quisiera preguntar, en la poesía, ¿cuál es el éxito total? ¿Se busca la objetivación, la claridad, o se busca más bien crear algún sentimiento? Pero no sé, quisiera saber cuál es la opinión de ustedes.
That's for you too.
Answer?
Okay. So, let me solidify the question. Please, Rocio. Was the man speaking about what is our objective experience of poetry through the musicality of poetry? Is that what he was asking? Well, I suppose I have to refer to my previous answer, unfortunately. I think that a poem's great strength is that it's enacting something like music, but in the building blocks of communication. Where music has the benefit of being outside of communication, i.e. language, poetry is inside communication. And that's the only type of poetry I don't like, is when people seem to have missed that gift. That the art is an art of paradox, and that paradox is experienced as a burst. And that's very private and bracketed to me. And I think that changes depending on your mood, your age, your experience, the poem you read before that poem you're reading. You know, everything about the context affects it. So in terms of what that word musicality means, I suppose people use that to refer to like the rhythm of the reading, but I don't think I've ever got a stable grip on any of my poetic experiences of reading to know what that word really means. So I suppose that my answer relates to your idea of objectivity, but musicality, I couldn't give an answer without it being somewhat false and cloy, which maybe I should have done, but I won't.
Nada más un poco para complementar respecto de lo que es el acto puro de creación de la poesía, sin duda. Digamos, no es siquiera, no tiene que ver directamente con temas, con ideas o con sentimientos, sino con un edificio lingüístico, está hecho de palabras. Y si ese edificio no se eleva, digamos, en términos de una creación y no per se logra todo lo otro, los temas, las emociones, las ideas, se desmorona, ¿no? Y sí, yo creo que es yo sí lo concibo con una creación total, es decir, aunque parta de otras cosas y parezca no serlo a cabalidad así, haber nacido, ¿no? Como tal, sino, no sé si en términos de una traducción, que parte de un poema anterior al que uno le tiene culto, reverencia total, pero que de repente estás viendo que entre tus palabras se está transformando totalmente y está logrando esto que decía un poco Steve hace un rato, y que, bueno, defendido por los grandes como George Steiner y Walter Benjamin, etcétera, ¿no? que es lo que en una traducción de un poema se descubre algo nuevo que ya estaba ahí, es decir, algo oculto que ni siquiera el autor muchas veces reconocía, y gracias a la traducción emergen muchísimas cosas. Entonces siempre es una creación. Digo, hay diferentes tipos de creación, hay creaciones que son así absolutas, partiendo de un autor y su lengua, ¿no? Y hay otras que vienen claramente de otras fuentes, pero la escritura de poesía en sí misma es una traducción de cosas, de otros órdenes, ¿no? La lengua es una traducción de órdenes divinas, si así se quiere ver, ¿no? Y si a eso le agregamos la música, que es la prueba de la existencia de Dios, bueno, pues entonces ya no sé si contestamos.
Me gustaría nada más agregar, bueno, comentar, por ejemplo, yo soy muy una convencida que Sor Juana no estaba equivocada cuando aceptaba los poemas por comanda, ¿no? Estos poemas que se hacen por comanda, por encargo, comisionados, ¿no? Y en ese caso, por ejemplo, hubo un proyecto muy interesante que se llama Proyecto Líquido Miedo, que hizo Alumnos 47, la fundación, que invitó a 7 artistas contemporáneos, entre ellos Carlos Amorales, Pedro Reyes, Galia Evenschultz, y también a 7 escritores, entre ellos varios y como 5 poetas, ¿no? Julián Herbert, Cristina Rivera Garza, Luis Felipe Fabre, y yo también estuve por ahí, en fin, y la idea era traducir de alguna manera o escribir a partir de lo visto en estas acciones, en estas instalaciones de arte contemporáneo que se fueron dando a lo largo de un mes y medio, una cosa así, hasta la destrucción definitiva del espacio, del inmueble, que era una casa en la San Miguel Chapultepec. Y yo escribí a partir de un video, ni siquiera un video, era un cortito de Kenneth Anger, que es uno de los cineastas más importantes en Los Ángeles y del cine norteamericano, en una escena que me pareció fundamental, que era un aerostático cruzando el cielo, y que de hecho es el poema que está en este libro, y que al final de esos 2 minutos y 35 segundos veías en este utópico paisaje celestial de las montañas, no sé qué, que el aerostático tenía una suástica. Y fue el principio, la traducción de todo lo que tenía que ver, o la lectura, ¿no? De lo que tenía esta imagen, esta suspensión, digamos, de la belleza y lo terrible, con lo cual escribí todo el poema. Entonces, de alguna manera, la construcción de la obra está ahí todo el tiempo, gestada o con dispositivos de mucha índole, ¿no? Que pueden ser sonoros, musicales, en fin. Pero sí, es una construcción del lenguaje completo, el acto y la escritura poética. No sé si alguien más tiene por ahí una pregunta.
Sí, gracias. Pues esta es para el señor Fowler y Pura. Bueno, es algo un poquito sencillo y a la vez un poco filosófico. Si la poesía misma es una traducción, entonces ¿consideran realmente apropiado el término traducción en el caso de la traducción de poesía? ¿Y por qué?
Well, I think the word translation being used to represent a model of writing poetry, which if we were going to simply render them for the sake of speed, because I'm merciful towards you and your lives, I would suggest that there's two modes of poetry that have dominated the Western tradition, certainly in England, I won't speak beyond that, which is one which Benjamin called the theological tradition, the poets alone, they're inspired and they produce something from themselves, which I find to be deeply wrong and unethical. And then there's the other view, which is the poet is a thing in the world that decides to refract fragments of its experience, and often it's refracting language. And that begins, I suppose, in the Western tradition with Pound and modernism and stuff like that. That's very much the tradition I would say I'm part of. So you could add the verb to translate instead of the word to refract. So that's how I probably would answer that question. The word translation is a word that obviously just has a practical connotation about moving between languages. But in this context, saying translating experience into poetry, I suppose that's all poetry, but it's relevant to this idea of refraction, reflection. Or I prefer the verb to mulch, mulching, which is when you put lots of dead vegetable matter and it rots and becomes something new, which creates new flowers and so forth. Composting. That's how I see poetry. So maybe we could flip the words, and between languages it could be composting, Pura could compost me into Spanish, and so forth and so on.
Sí, es la palabra traducción la que causa, bueno, saca ronchas de pronto, ¿no? Sí, una refracción, como una refracción de la luz, digamos, o mejor aún una recreación, ¿no? Digo, yo creo que esa es la... Se le puede llamar de mil maneras y y hay más menos conservadores modos de referirse a ello y uno siempre se siente mal, traducción, no, mejor versión, mejor, por ejemplo, lo que ha hecho Ilya Kaminsky con lo que hace él del ruso, que lo publica como una lectura de Marina Tsvetaeva, ¿no? Y así llama su traducción, es su lectura de eso. Y esa lectura pues es un acto absolutamente creativo, ¿no? Y es creación. Vamos a llamarle lecturas de, ¿no? Eso vamos a aplicarla.
¿Alguna otra pregunta por ahí? No sé cómo andamos de tiempo, entonces por acá, aquí adelante hay una persona que nos quiere preguntar.
Okay, I would like to address this question directed to you, Mr. Fowler. And I wanted to make it in English because I don't want any interference between the translation process of the question.
Thank you.
And, okay, you told something about the translator being on the shadows beneath the original author of any novel, or in this case, poem. And, well, my question is this. Would you encourage people to learn, for example, another language in order to get the original idea of the text, or would you give the whole job to the translator? Because for example, in my life experience, I've known Leo Tolstoy completely in Spanish, but I'm fascinated with his style, with his ideas and everything. But I'm looking forward to learn English, Russian, to get it in the original text. So what do you think about it?
So if I understand the question correctly, are you suggesting, are you asking whether or not I would still encourage people to learn the language of authors that they love in order to get access to that original meaning, or just trust the translator, is that right? Yeah, you know, you've hit the nail on the head of why I'm so ashamed of my monolingualism, which is a product of the English school system, not my fault at all. There's a few things that I really wish I could do in my life. But I've tried to stay busy with doing other things, and the things that have fallen by the wayside have been languages and driving and swimming, actually. And I'll probably die from the other two rather than the translating. But no, I genuinely have a slightly excited half-dream sometimes that I can read German and can read Kafka. You know, it would be like opening a door to a new world, because I have that, because I care about literature in a private way, as I said before. And so I think about it, I would thoroughly encourage it. I mean, what more beautiful reason, aside from communicating with other human beings, would there be to learn another language, but to get hold of the literature and what that says about our peoples? I would thoroughly encourage people far cleverer than I, like everyone here who's clearly kindly laughing at jokes in English, who speaks 2 languages, one more than me, to go and learn another language, because precisely as you said, it would be a beautiful thing. My lack is no example. I think it's a lovely idea. And there's an incredible novella by Peter Handke called The Left-Handed Woman, and it's about a translator and the horror of her life, just sitting at a desk working 10 hours a day, picking through sentences and having to go back and rework it, and how evil it is. And I think that's why I refer to the idea of the translator being hidden, because there seems to be like an honor in that disappearance, in that shadow, and they do a wonderful thing, but obviously there's nothing like having both worlds open to you. So.
No sé si alguien más. Ah, creo que hay una pregunta aquí, el chico justo aquí de la primera fila.
It's for Fowler. I wrote it down since my English is not that good, but still. I really like your blog, the page you got. So you got there a selection of poems and videos and music and visual poetry and stuff. And it's like this anthology of different forms of art that merge in a place and make sense by itself. So I'd like to ask if you consider that page or that blog as a piece of art by itself, or an interdisciplinary work, or maybe, which could be good also, just a blog.
Thank you, Chico. Thank you for visiting my blog. I thought nobody did. The first thing I'll say is you should have asked these lovely people questions, because they're very clever and I am not. But I will answer your question because you visited my blog. I really believe that the reason why I'm really passionate about poetry and do a lot of stuff with it is because it is a new moment in poetry. It really is a new moment. A lot of people talk about these things and they're very idealistic, but technology has changed everything. It's changed the very approach to our thinking, the way we relate. Everything that we do in language has changed because of technology, and poetry is in language. So the blog to me is something necessary to communicate with people like yourself, who I never would have met, who I never would come across, to say something about what I'm trying to represent that is ultimately accessible to anyone at any time. And I think trying to stay ahead of that curve is what being avant-garde or trying to be in a vanguard is about. Is about growing with the world as we have it, not as we might want it in the past. And technology is going to allow people to get access to whatever they want at any time, not controlled by editors, not controlled by racisms or misogynies or things that have genuinely dominated the way literature was in the past. So to me, Twitter and blogs and these things that people are so ready to say, oh no, they're awful, they're going to do this, it's up to us to take control of them and emancipate these things and put our ideas out. So my blog is updated every day, full of stuff, and I genuinely believe nobody visits it. But it's something I enjoy doing because it's expressive, and the fact that it's so open is a beautiful thing to me. So thank you again for visiting my blog.
Creo que el tiempo se nos acaba, no sé, porque como no veo así, sí, que me te dicen ya se acabó. Así que bueno, les agradecemos muchísimo que hayan estado con nosotros. El libro está por ahí. ¿Perdón? ¿Alguien dijo algo? ¿Sí? ¿No? Bueno, el libro estará ahí afuera. Aprovechen que están aquí los autores que pueden firmar, ¿verdad? Muchas gracias, Steven, muchas gracias, Pura. Muchas gracias a ustedes y no se pierdan mañana la lectura a las 8 de la noche. No me acuerdo el lugar, pero ahí estarán. Gracias.